What's up, you guys? It's Jonathan Carter, the movie critic that watches bad movies so you don't have to, and today we are talking about Avatar: Fire and Ash. Avatar: Fire and Ash is the third entry in the larger-than-life box office gargantuan film series, Avatar. And right before we jump into this review, I am not the biggest fan of the Avatar films. I am a huge James Cameron fan. I love Terminator 2, Aliens, Titanic. I think those are all just phenomenal films in their own right. I do appreciate Avatar for just like the incredible CGI spectacle that these films are, and that just the filmmaking style, aesthetic of it is on another level, but I have just never been that hooked with the story. They're obviously much more about the action and, again, size, spectacle, just huge, larger-than-life movies, you know, exploring this alien planet, and they never really focused in on the story or made the most emotional, resonant type of story that kind of hooked me in any way. But I did go into Avatar: Fire and Ash with a very positive mindset, really hoping to like it. And as we jump into this review, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on TikTok, Instagram for shorter versions of reviews, and then Spotify for podcast versions of these reviews. And without further ado, let's jump into the review. Okay, so right off the bat, Avatar: Fire and Ash is the strongest Avatar movie yet. It is really enjoyable, you guys. Kind of like I talked about at the beginning of this video, everybody goes into an Avatar movie wanting to see larger than life spectacle on the screen. Just the way James Cameron makes these movies really pushes how far CGI and special effects and camera work can take a film. Like, I think that each Avatar movie genuinely pushes the envelope forward of what a movie can be in the special effects department. And Avatar: Fire and Ash is no exception to that. There are some breathtakingly beautiful moments in this film that genuinely had my jaw on the floor, and it's just so difficult sometimes to wrap your mind around that literally 100% of what you're looking at on the screen at times is completely fake, is completely computer generated, and it is just so, it's a technical marvel, and it is genuinely so incredibly impressive how well these movies look, and that goes for all three Avatar films. I'm personally not sure if there's another movie that can compete with these films on that CGI level. But those are not all the positives going on with Avatar: Fire and Ash. Like I talked about, I have always kind of felt like the story, the human story here with Jake Sully and his wife Neytiri and their kids, and then you have the Colonel kind of hunting him down. I thought the first Avatar was enjoyable enough story-wise, but like obviously it looked amazing. And then Avatar: The Way of Water, I thought also looked really good, but that one I liked less than the first one. The story just really didn't do anything for me, and I found myself kind of bored in that film. But to my surprise, Avatar: Fire and Ash has an incredibly impactful, emotionally gripping story. This film smartly weaves plot lines from the first two movies together to kind of make this crescendo of this third film, which also has its own plot lines, but this feels like it is really calling back to the first two movies more so than The Way of Water did with the first one. This feels like the trilogy really coming together to make one incredibly expansive, long narrative of Jake Sully on this alien planet. This easily feels the most unified out of all three films. As the plot goes on, there are multiple plot lines happening at the start of the film, but they all come together in multiple crescendo moments in this film. Like, you think you're going into the final battle of the film. Nope, there is still a battle after that, and then even another one after that. Like, the movie just is so larger than life and expansive in its story, and there are just so many moments that outside of the CGI, just what they do in a battle, what they do in the story, just had me so incredibly immersed in this film. However, speaking of the story, I do feel like, so essentially there we have the plot A of Jake Sully and his family. They kind of all go on their different journeys in this film, but then you have the villain's plot line, and the Colonel here, I was just so incredibly invested in where his story was going that for a while in this film, his story became a little more interesting than our heroes here, and that is a kind of dangerous game to play in your movie, because while the villain's story really took off at the beginning of the film, our heroes were kind of, Jake Sully and his family, were kind of left meandering through the first act going into the second act of this film before the villain's plotline got our heroes moving and gave them kind of their trajectory for where they were gonna go. That also kind of brings us to another negative of this film. It does not need to be 3 hours and 15 minutes. This is the longest Avatar movie yet, and I think they could have easily shaved off half an hour to make this for a very solid 2 hour and 45 minute film, and it would have cleared a lot of this meandering that kind of happens going into the second act, specifically with our heroes, or Jake Sully and his family. I did talk about how amazing these Avatar movies look, all three of them together and individually, but something about Avatar Fire and Ash, some scenes looked a little bit off. They looked almost kind of like when you turn motion smoothing on your TV or like in a video game. It looked a little too fake, which I know is a weird critique when this is like entirely computer CGI, but the other two films didn't have this issue, so it's weird going into the third one and seeing this issue for the first time in the newest film. There were also some moments that veered a little too close to like video game cutscene graphics, specifically a lot having to do with the water scenes with whales. It just looked like that CGI was kind of glossed over to get us into our final battle big moments. Also, while the final battle is incredible, it is also a little repetitive from part 2. Like, while watching Avatar Fire and Ash, I was kind of getting that battle and the Battle of the Way of Water confused in a sense of they're just so incredibly similar to each other, and they have so many of the same like action beats, and honestly that makes sense when you hear that James Cameron wanted this to be one giant movie, but
it didn't have any breath. I needed to breathe with the characters, so I split it into 2 separate stories.
Also, I am fully on board for making more of these movies. James Cameron has like Avatar 4, 5, and 6 planned. I think Avatar 5 just got a release date in like December of 2031 or something like that. But also, why? If the story could have been easily wrapped up in this film, but instead, kind of like what happened in The Way of Water, there's not a clear end to this movie when there could have been, and it just feels like there's not a clear end because James Cameron wants to make more of these movies, which I get that they make $1.5 billion every time they come out.
Hello, I like money.
And they're enjoyable enough, this one being the most enjoyable, but if you could just make a really solid trilogy that ends on a fantastic note, why not do that instead of trying to reach through, to Avatar 10 or whatever James Cameron is planning? So, wrapping this up with the verdict, this is easily the most enjoyable Avatar film for me. If you are an Avatar fan, you will enjoy this one. If you are on the fence about the series, I think this one might get you on board. It is easily the most jaw-dropping, larger-than-life spectacle kind of film with some of the best action scenes or giant camera sweeping moments in the trilogy, and it also has the best story out of these 3 films, at least in my opinion. So aside from a few wonky CGI moments or maybe a storyline that doesn't entirely wrap itself up as neatly as it could, I am going to give Avatar Fire and Ash a 7.5 out of 10, and on a see it, stream it, or skip it, see it in the biggest screen that you can. Thank you all so much for watching my review. Let me know your thoughts on Avatar Fire and Ash in the comments. Are you a fan of this series? Is this your favorite one? Where does it kind of line up for you? What did you think about my review? Put all of that down below. Thank you all so much for watching. Check out my other videos here. And as always, I will see you guys on the next one.